So I know I've been hyping this video up over the last couple days, the video from the IMN Global Indexing and ETF Conference out at the beautiful Monarch Beach Resort in Dana Point. But I'm really excited about this project because I was fortunate enough to have a handful of my friends join me in my room for a conversation. And this conversation was not scripted. They didn't know what we were going to talk about beforehand, and really I didn't know what we were going to talk about until we all got there. And I just wanted to have a conversation amongst people who I view as leaders of our profession, especially amongst the younger advisors. So I view us as the advisors amongst many others who weren't at the conference. I can't have everybody in one hotel room. There are many people across the country that I'm friends with that could very easily fill this. And honestly, in the future, hopefully I'll do more of these at other conferences. But these are people I view as leaders who are taking our profession to the next level in a better, more inclusive way, and changing business models and making this profession something that we all want to be a part of for the long term. So when we got together, the conversation ranged from everything from diversity and inclusion to there not being a set career path for people wanting to come into the profession. And we also talked about things that we're excited about. Now, we didn't just identify things that we think need to be fixed or improved upon. We also gave answers to how we think that these changes could come about, whether through ourselves, collectively as a group, but how do we make the profession better and move it forward? So keep your eye on some of these advisors. Some of them you may know. They're all doing great things today, and they'll be doing even better things in the future. So these will be some of the leaders of our profession going forward. If you're not a financial advisor, take comfort in that the advisors that are leading the profession are talking about things more than just investments. We're talking about how do we better serve you? How do we improve the business model? How do we include more people that have never had access to financial advice in the past? How do we change that going forward? This is a very important conversation. This is happening all the time. I'm just fortunate that I was able to capture it on film to share with all of you. Now, this video ended up being close to 60 minutes. I told everybody I wanted a half hour of their time. This is how generous they were and how good the conversation was. So what I've done is divided it into 3 segments. The first segment is really going to be about the diversity and inclusion issue that's within our profession and how we think we can fix it. The second segment is more about how do we create a career path, what are other business model flaws that are out there, how do we fix it, and then the final segment is going to be what is it that's keeping us excited about the future. There's very little editing in this. This is very real. I wanted you to be there in the conversation with us. So we might be joking about things. There's going to be laughter. Somebody's going to get up to go to the restroom. This is all real. I wanted you to be there as if you're a fly on the wall. So come on and join me for this conversation amongst a handful of my friends. I'll be doing this again, hopefully at WellStack. There'll be a lot of good advisors there that I would love to recreate this and have another conversation, maybe about different topics, but just continue to move our profession forward with good advisors, taking care of clients and putting clients' interests first above everything else. So I hope you enjoy this. Give me some feedback. You can find me out on Twitter. You know where I'm at. And I'll see you all hopefully with another one of these after the WellStack conference in September.
Next to Freak Line.
So I'll do an intro saying what the whole premise of this is. And then, but here in a second, I'll kick it off so I think it'll be easy for us to start talking. And then I just think we chime in whenever we want. So like, forget that the camera's there and we're all just having a conversation. And that conversation is going to be about where collectively as a group. Like, there's a lot of other people that we're friends with that, if they were here in Dana Point, could be included in this group. But I kind of look at us as people who are leading the initiative for the future of our profession. You know, we've got different backgrounds, whether it be stories, man, woman. Right. On that. I learned that lesson before. So where do we want to see our profession go? Improvements that need to be made, and what are we collectively as a group and also individually at our firms going to do about it? So that's what I want this dialogue to be, and I open it up to the floor because this is not my video, this is our video, so somebody can start the conversation as far as what are some changes that we need to see from the profession, how are we going to change that?
Perfect.
Great.
No problem.
All right, so I'll start. So it is going to be my video.
Wait, is it already?
We rolling. That's what I said. Perf.
Yeah, no. It's,
Oh,
I was
you
kidding.
know it's already rolling. I thought you were just picking on
Yeah.
me.
No, I was,
my
but
God.
yes.
This will go in at the end of the blooper roll.
Right.
Next some credits and we can put this all in.
I was just feeling short next to Corny. I'm like, okay.
So obviously, one of the big things that we've all talked about this at some point, in one fashion or another, that obviously can use improvement is the diversity amongst professionals, which is why I look at this group of people and I think it's pretty exciting. Like, it doesn't include everybody that could be in here, but it's a pretty diverse group that we have just in this room, and we're all at one conference. Now, if we step out to the rest of the conference, that's not going to necessarily be the case.
That's a whole different story.
Right, but that's why I think it's so great for us to be here, is that this right here shows one of the ways that things are changing, and that younger advisors and investment professionals have an opportunity to take lead, and whether it be start their own company and begin to have more representation amongst the people that we help and the people that are in the profession. So I think obviously one of them is a change amongst who the professionals are running the businesses and leading the way and who they're helping. And this room right here, I think, is reflective of that. So that's one thing obviously I think that could be changed.
Yeah, and I think diversity is not just diversity of like what we look like here, but also diversity of thought, or diversity of, you know, just the different styles that you manage money, or just how you think about life in general. So I think we have that kind of diversity here as well. Like, you're very, like, you know, diversity of how many tattooed advisors do you see out there, right?
Yeah.
How many like deadlifting advisors or Olympic runner, you know, advisors do you see out there? So we all bring like a different diversity. Yeah.
Well, I think the thought part is, especially since we all know each other probably because of Twitter,
Yeah.
and the echo chamber that can come from chamber. And even though there is that echo chamber, when you sit down in an environment like this, even though we all share a lot of similar thoughts and views, we still have some differences.
Mhm.
So the echo chamber doesn't really exist once you get outside of Twitter. It's just sometimes on that platform. So you're right, the different views on things being around. That's why I love this. It's like these conferences, it's not the breakout sessions. Like, the only reason I'm going to go to some of these later, sorry IMN, is to support all of you. If I could do this all day and the dinner I had last night, that would be worth the price of admission on its own.
Here's what I think. I think, again, the power of this moment is what you were able to do to get all of us here. Not because we're your friends or we respect you, but because, again, if you truly want to talk about diversity, look at how you've opened up yourself to being exposed to new people and different ideas, and what that means of the eclectiveness of people in the room.
Mm-hmm.
That's exemplary of what conferences should do. That's exemplary of what firms should do. That's exemplary of what people should do in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you know one person of color, or if you know one person that, you know, that was an Ivy League or was the first one to go to college, you open yourself up to that network of people that you would have never had exposure to before. So I think the power here is less in what we say, but more what people will see.
Okay.
Right? And especially, you know, for me, I think one of the things that we always, as advisors, there's power in our thought and in our vision and what we say, and we're all going to speak at conferences and we all have something to say, but the power of vision, right, as we spoke about at a conference, when it's prosperity and it's you know, white folk, prosperity and it's white folk, and in a minute you talk about, you know, poverty, it's people of color, or it's little kids from Africa. This vision you'll never see on a billboard about retirement on the highway. This vision you'll never see on CNBC. So it's really powerful for people to see it, because if I can see it, I could believe it, I could do it. But you can tell me whatever you want. Oh, Dana Point is beautiful, that's cool. And I look and see it, totally different story.
Yeah, I think part of having diversity in our profession is so that we can also work to represent the families that we're working with.
Right.
You know, and since I'm in Portland, like, we have a very large LGBTQ community, and it's so important to me that those families feel empowered
Yep.
to come into my office and know that they're welcome. And when my clients say, you know, my son or daughter is transgender and we're working on the transition, like how we fund that and like go through those processes, it's so valuable to have an advisor that is empathetic to that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the younger advisors are just really open to saying, like, it's not just diversity of gender or color or ethnicity or religion. Like, there's so much diversity among us, and it's all good. Mm-hmm. And so there's a place for all of us in there,
Right.
you know, in supporting our clients, and our clients want someone that will get it.
That doesn't fall under the traditional financial planning, you know,
Right.
as far as what you're saying. So you have to have a more broad stroke and a view of what planning is for that family and what they're specifically looking for.
Yeah, and I mean, surrogacy for, you know, for gay couples, and or, you know, like doing some sort of IVF for some of my lesbian couples. Like, there's all different options, And so, yeah, the estate planning portion of it, I mean, there's just many different variables, but you have to like open yourself up to that and be okay with talking about that.
I'm curious if you guys think that what we can do as a group to improve diversity in the profession.
Yell at people on Twitter. That is that is 100% my tactic.
Because I think we all agree. I think we all agree. There's a problem. There's something that we can improve here. But like, what can we actually do to make that improvement? Having these conversations is step number one, of course.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think that Justin is in Indiana, and we found ourselves here, right?
Yeah.
We can all be a Justin in our communities, right? And assemble rooms like this in our communities. I should be doing it in San Francisco. You should be doing it in Madeira. You take it back to New Jersey, Portland, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's how we start this domino effect for diversity. And going to Tyrone's point, for me as a child, diversity meant hope. To see an African American that was a businessman, right?
100%.
And not have to just be like, yo, Jay-Z did it, right?
Right, yeah,
like to see
100%.
somebody else walking down the street
100%.
like he has a tie on. I didn't learn how to tie a tie till I was in the 8th grade, right? And it wasn't from my father, it was from my 6th grade teacher, right? So to see somebody that's representative of a hope of something that I want to be, right? So that's huge. I want to thank you for doing that. And I think that we can spread that hope by being Justin Kinselli's in our respective cities.
I think that like that story of not seeing anybody in a tie and like not really connecting that, like that when we were in Florida, I was oblivious to the fact that all of the slides of prosperity were white and the only ones of poverty and sickness were people of color. Because to me, it just made natural sense when they're talking about malaria. Like, where does that typically happen? That just happens to be there. I didn't make the connection of that's all I ever see as a person of color is sickness and that.
Right.
Like that, I was oblivious until you said that. And I like to think that I'm pretty open, but that's a pretty ignorant view on life, and I wasn't aware of that. So to your point, I think where, especially like white men, I think where the pushback comes is that sometimes we feel like the bad guy, even though we didn't realize we did anything wrong, and it's because we don't understand that. Like when I think that, not myself so much, but I think that a lot of white men don't realize, they don't make that connection, and they think that I don't know, I can't explain what I want to say, but like they don't realize. And I think if they heard those stories and were able to understand what it's like to be a young black male and see an older black male in a suit and tie, and that I can do that. Like as a white person, we saw that all the time. Of course, we don't realize what it's like to never see that. And I think a lot of people aren't willing to open up because they're stubborn and they don't want to open up to do it. But I also think there are some that just don't know. And until these conversations are heard and they hear things like that, their eyes aren't going to be open. So I think you're right. Having these conversations and including a bunch of different people and letting those people who didn't experience that realize here's why it's such a big deal. It's that silent messaging that you never dealt with because you didn't not see that. That make sense?
That makes sense. Okay, and I think to that point, in addition to what you said, another way, we're all in this echo chamber that's Twitter, right? Everybody's good at retweeting the advisor's blog or the next best thing that they're doing, but we need to kind of be an echo chamber for those stories as well.
Right.
So like when you hear them or when you have these conversations in private, we need to make those conversations public.
Right.
Like I was talking to this phenomenal young lady, and I wanted to share that with the Twitter community because that's going to be hope for someone that I might not ever meet, right? And I think that's something that we can do with the mediums that we have right here on our phones, right? Through videos and stuff like that. So I think that we not only need to be each other's biggest fans when it comes to the work that we do, but to be people's fans when it comes to the narratives that we're hearing as well.
And what you're saying, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think about like even coming to a conference. You and I talk about coming to a conference. So you come to a conference like this, and you walk into the conference, right? I walked in, and immediately I'm looking for you, and I'm looking for you. Like the first people I'm looking, like, where's Tyrone at? Where's the sergeant?
100%.
Like,
Real talk.
Okay, so where are they at? Oh man, where? So I called us. Hey man, where?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm not moving till you get it.
And I don't think that, like, I was talking to another person, and she was going to attend the Quad A conference. She's not black. She's going to attend the Quad A conference. I said, I want you to tell me what you feel like when you get to that conference. I said, because I said, this is what I feel like every time I go to a conference.
100%.
And she was like, I never thought of that.
Exactly.
And I think that the awareness is the key word, because I don't think if you don't know, then you don't, you just don't know.
Right.
And so like I think about stuff. I go talk at high schools a lot, so I go talk to the kids. For those kids to be able to see, I used to go in jeans and stuff. I used to go in jeans and put a polo on, but it was something that it just kind of, I said, these kids need to see me in a suit. These kids need to see me dressed up. They need to see me as something that they can be, because most of the, they can't get their influence from what they see on TV. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to talk to them about real stuff that's going on in their life, and they need to see me dressed appropriately.
Right.
And it's interesting to think that I have to think about that when I go somewhere to speak to these kids, so that they have something that they can reach for. Not saying that they want to be a financial advisor, but they're saying, oh, that's an educated black man in a suit. I can do that. And it's not only the black kids that do that. It's most of the minority kids, whether, whatever minority they are. They look at it and they say, okay, I can be that. Right. And I think, conversations like this, and then taking it back to, our respective communities and growing this, and not from a place of pointing the finger saying, oh, you're wrong because you're this or that, but saying, look, this is something just to think about. And I've even had these conversations with my wife. My wife's Mexican, and we would sit down and we would talk about stuff. And she came to the family. This is the first time we had a family reunion in a while. And she came to the family reunion and she looked at me and she was like, babe, I know what you're talking about now. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm totally and I was the one that wasn't aware. Yeah. Because I felt like I was like, man, I'm good. Yeah. I mean, like, what? I mean, give me some of them greens. Give me some. Yeah. Get all that. Right. And she was like, babe, I know what you feel like. And I was like, totally oblivious. Right. That she was in the position that I was in. So I just think, just making sure that we're aware of the surroundings and situations like where we're at.
Yeah. Well, I think not only does it require awareness, but you need to be empathetic. Like once someone tells you that this is how they're feeling, you need to say, rather than saying not all men or not all of us, you say, wow, that really sucks. Like, now let's talk about this more and really engage. But you also you have to open yourself up to discomfort. And as a white person walking around, like I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, a middle-class family. My dad's a financial planner as well, and like I know that I always had a privileged upbringing. Like it doesn't negate the work that I did to get where I am, but I never have to be worried about being stopped by a police officer because of the color of my skin. And I'm like very aware of that every time I'm out and about, and just like having that and like remembering that is, I think, really, really valuable. And to get more people pushed in that direction, I think is really important.
So 2 quick things. I want to answer your question, but to your point, I struggled immensely going on Bloomberg about what I should wear. Like literally the inner turmoil. And I had a client, right, really wealthy, young, white client, said, oh, sneakers and jeans, go, it'll be perfect. And I'm like, no. Right? I considered it because I'm like, oh, it'd be pretty cool, but I'm like, I'll be sitting next to Scarlet Fu. I gotta be right. Right? But
I understand completely.
So I'm like, I was like, I could make it about myself, or I could make it about that young black and brown person who's watching Bloomberg like I was, and then be seeing me and then going, okay, right, I can do that, right? And I also, position that with when I was at Consensus, a crypto conference, and Josh was like, all right, I want you next to me, and I'm like, all right, I want to make a statement. I'm going to do jeans and a t-shirt, and it had a powerful effect in that arena. Right, so I think there's so many things you have to be aware of. Not only being a person of color, but as a black man, how we're seen. Not only by the ones we're trying to aspire, but the ones that have kept us out of rooms, right? And the ones who, again, we have to lean on for access. So, right, so if we walk in and we're positioning ourselves a certain way, then that stigma right away is, oh, okay, right, this is what we expected. Yep, it's confirmed. It's what we expected. Now, to answer your question is just, and I talk about this a lot on Twitter, is just getting proximate. You can't help people if you don't get proximate. I have to get next to you and feel what you're feeling, what you're hurting, what's going on in your life in order for me to be able to help you. So I think for financial advisors, just to get proximate to people who are hurting or need help, and again, as white men, I've seen, I know you guys see poor white kids, and I keep saying this, and I was in San Diego and I saw so many poor white people. I said, nobody cares for them, man. Pass them like an exam, right? But it's so normal for us to see people who are disenfranchised and poor that are of color. You're quicker to either do something or whatever. And I pointed it out to a friend of mine, right? Privileged, affluent, white, and he was like, you know what, you're right. And I just kept pointing it out, and he didn't see it. I said, these people have no voice. So I think no matter who it is, because again, I always say it's a bigger class issue in this country, but I think getting proximate, whether it's going into schools or just letting people see you, is just as powerful as them seeing us, right? And then those young kids who struggled and their dad's not around, or they're super poor, or in just deep poverty, I think for them to see people and then get proximate to them and then say, okay, I know you're struggling with this, again, goes back to the vision of what they see. So I think if we just expose ourselves more, an hour a week, right? Even it's a Zoom, right? Thanks to Justin, I do a Zoom with kids in Chicago, right? We know what's going on in Chicago, right? And these kids on the way home got to deal with stuff that we would pass out if we had to go through some of them neighborhoods to get home. I wouldn't go. I stay at school, to be honest. But, you know, so that's that.
So obviously this is a topic we could go on forever, but I think there's more things we as the torchbearers down the road need to improve upon as well. What are some other things? And before, I want to hit on a couple more, and then I want to end on a high note. So be thinking as we're going through other things we want to improve upon, like what are we most excited about as well. So we'll end on a high note, but what are some other things that as you look at our profession today, if we could snap our finger and change, what else would we change?